Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, November 18th. The time is 3:13 p.m. and I call the regularly scheduled Board of Estimate and Contract meeting into order. Clerk Bonilla, can you please do the roll call?
Thank you. Comptroller Morton,
Here.
Council President Brown.
Here and remote.
Thank you. Mayor Patterson Howard.
Here.
Thank you.
We can proceed with the agenda.
Under resolutions approving ordinances, Department of Management Services, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the New York State Department of State Grant Contract T1003494 for the reimbursable purchase of a replacement UPS backup battery for the Mount Vernon Police Department.
So move.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Two, Department of Buildings, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance and award of requests for proposals, RFP number 004 for third-party construction, inspection, and consulting services to Labella Associates.
So move.
Second.
On the question?
So what is the estimated, I guess, revenue that's covering the cost of this contract? Do we know? How? How is the revenue?
I mean, well, the revenue, these is for the large scale development projects, I believe. Let me make sure.
Yeah, from what I understood from talking to DC Apollon this morning, this is supposed to cover, I think, 115 Opal.
Okay, so yes, so for, I mean, the revenue for the inspections comes in from the contractor. And the expenses will be paid out of that revenue line.
Wait a minute, this is the RFP, so. Okay, but this third-party construction
Inspection.
inspections.
Yes, so I mean, this is going to be, I believe, 315 units of housing. In order for our two housing inspectors to inspect 315 units of housing, it would take them away from doing their regular job with everything else. And so we're going to have a third-party inspector come and do this at the cost of the developer. So we did not think that it is prudent to allow a third-party developer to hire their own person to come and do inspections. And so we're using our outside contractor to be able to do these inspections.
In addition to the, okay, this is just for that project alone? Development, ongoing development of 115 South McQuestion. So it's just about South McQuestion.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that the project can move through its
And the money's
process.
coming from the developer.
Comes from the
to-
developer.
to do it. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's okay. And that's an advance payment or that's how soon? Yeah, I'm trying to cash flow here, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know if there is a developer paying them directly or.
No, the developer has to pay the city and the
It's
city,
written, it's coming to us.
yeah.
Because
The developer pays the city. So there are different inspections that are scheduled throughout the process of construction, whether it's the framing and then, the electrical or the HVAC. And so there are different timelines that have to be met to allow a project to continue to move forward, which would be challenging and would slow down the timeframe of development. And that is why we're going to an external contractor, but we can't have that developer hire their own people. So we put out the RFP.
So can we treat it similar to how we do things with council, where we set up the escrow, we have the developers fund it first, so that the city doesn't owe any money, and then we can only bill against that escrow.
I would suggest that we do that. I mean, so we can offer RFP, I guess, but we gotta make sure we set up the mechanism, I agree.
Mhm.
And to kind of pay it, and we'll put it in the escrow, and then that way we can pay it out and then do a reconciliation at the end, and anything left over, just get back to the developer. Okay.
Okay. All right. Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
All right.
Council President Brown,
I also just, Madam Mayor, please have someone write a referral letter to set up that escrow account as well, please.
Okay.
Mayor Patterson Howard,
Aye.
number 3. Mayor's Office, an ordinance authorizing the creation of the position of data officer within the Department of Buildings.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
okay, so this is money coming from Harvard,
Yes.
and is it coming? This is money coming in, and they're prepaying,
Yes.
right? Okay. And it's inclusive of actually the benefits.
Yes.
I'll make sure I put it on record.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
This is a fully funded
you
position.
like these?
The position, kind of had been as a fellow. And Harvard was doing it directly, but they changed the format for these positions. And they are funding the city,
Right.
directly.
And this position is already in the budget? Or no, we have to add it to the 2026?
I mean, we would add the revenue and the expense to the 2026.
Yeah, but the position as well, right? Position's not listed
But yeah,
right
the
now.
position's not listed right now.
So note that for George.
Yes, already added in, and I spoke with George about it already. He's added it to his list.
Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 4, Department of Public Safety, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Westchester County Department of Corrections for the reimbursement of prisoner transportation services for the years 2025 and 2026.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
glad to see this.
We've caught up.
Yeah, this has been supposedly, I guess, the holdup of the reimbursements for 2025. So, good.
Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 5, Department of Public Safety, an ordinance authorizing the suspension of parking meter enforcement in certain municipal parking lots and garages to promote holiday shopping December 8th through the 24th, 2025, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to include December 31st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
So, while we've had some challenges with, parking meter revenue, not only this year, but in the past, the question was as to what would we continue to do this? And I guess, and we decided that it was beneficial, but the question came out now, it's beneficial to do it in order to ensure that, folks also would come to Mount Vernon to also purchase stuff during the holiday season. So, the trade-off of trying to also help to make sure that we continue to bring in sales tax as well, because I know there may be a question. Well, if you're saying that there's a revenue problem, especially with parking meters, why would we do this? Well, it's a short period of time, but it also helps to entice also, commerce, to come into the city business, so.
Okay, thank you. Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
All right,
Council President Brown,
You
Aye.
might be, okay.
Mayor Patterson Howard,
Aye.
Number six, Department of Public Safety and ordinance authorizing the award of a contract for red light violation photo enforcement and monitoring systems, RFP 2025, RFP RLC CMV.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
I'm glad that we've gotten to this point now. I guess the most important part is making sure the execution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting the contract back to them and then getting the implementation as soon as possible.
We have the contract. I'm ready to sign it after this meeting.
Agree.
Thank you. Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number seven, Department of Public Safety and ordinance authorizing payment to TriTech Software Systems, formerly Central Square, for CAD and RMS software use covering the period March 1st, 2025 through May 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
What was the delay? This is March 1st through May 15th.
Honestly, I'm not aware. I'm not sure. We can table it and, or hold it in, well, not hold it, but I can contact PD and find out what the delay was, but.
Well,
I don't know
hold it if
offhand.
it's,
No, I'm just saying until later on in the meeting.
Oh. I didn't know if the explanation was given to the council.
Not in regards to the delay, but why the expense. So the question asked to Deputy Chief Addison was essentially, why did we go over the contract that we had? And he's explained that there were some delays in transitioning from the old software to the new software that we purchased. But he didn't give an explanation, or was he asked why this came so late after May?
Oh. Okay. Okay, just, I'm not gonna hold up. I think, because it's a bill, it has to be paid, right? I mean, at this point, I just want to, just somebody just get the explanation to me. That's all. That's good. Okay. Delay.
Okay. Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number eight, Comptroller, an ordinance authorizing the comptroller to enter into an agreement with Twilio for, how you say it, Twilio? For the provision of SMS services in connection with the UKG Telestaff System Comp 2025-17.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number nine, Comptroller, an ordinance authorizing the comptroller to enter into an agreement with Prime Force for archiving of UKG workforce time and attendance data comp 2025-18.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
So, just for, actually for the last two, for that, the one prior, this one, all of this is related to the, workforce time and attendance brackets. Just making sure that we're improving the process. One, allowing for some flexibility as it pertains to how we actually track the time. Two, and especially for those that are oftentimes remote on days. And then two, making sure that we also maintain the records and being able to properly kind of archive them, for, any of the, compliance issues or, reporting that is necessary.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 10, Comptroller, an ordinance authorizing the installation of a portrait of former Comptroller Maureen Walker in City Hall.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
So, yeah, so this was presented to me from me to the council. After, a while of having conversations, even with the former comptroller. As we know that, Comptroller Walker spent over 24 years as the comptroller in the city of Mount Vernon. Many of those years actually, were financially beneficial, to the city. In fact, when she left, I believe that actually the city actually had a fund balance surplus of 15 to 19 million dollars. So, and so she's first female, the first Caribbean African American female to serve in that role, and the tenure of it. Just thought it was befitting even in that to honor her in some way, and this seemed to be appropriate as she spent all of those years down there, particularly in that office. And we worked on actually making sure to have the actual portrait itself donated. The only real cost is around actually the installation ceremonial stuff. So that's it.
Okay, roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
I
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
11, Department of Planning and Community Development, an ordinance authorizing the transfer of funds within the Department of Planning and Community Development to allocate for payment of the ESRI invoice, Egress GIS annual maintenance invoice of $60,300.
So moved.
second,
On the question?
do we know when this is actually due? Is that on this? This is
This is for the GIS software.
the annual maintenance.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, it's software in technology related, right? All right, that's all. We can actually, even if it is next year's, for the year, it can be prepaid. So, not a problem. All right, okay.
Roll call?
Comptroller Moore,
I,
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 12, public hearing. A resolution setting the date for a public hearing regarding the proposed 2026 annual estimate for the city of Mount Vernon.
Can we move, well,
You want to skip that?
if we want to move this to
To the
finish
end?
the other business, and then we can knock this out.
To skip this one for now, resolutions authorizing partial payments. Number 13, Department of Public Works, a resolution authorizing partial payment number 19 for sewer system rehabilitation Phase 1 to National Water Main Cleaning Company.
So moved.
second,
On the question?
so this is the pre-financing.
Yeah, finances to pay for this one until the reimbursement comes in to pay the pre-finance.
Okay, so we get the money, pay it, and then actually and pay it back to the pre-financing, so, okay.
Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Under salary resolutions, number 14, salary resolution.
Clerk. I move to take items 14, 15, and 16 as a block vote.
Need a second.
actually. 16 is a settlement. So just 14 and 15.
14 and 15? Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, like, trying to get them hands
I
up.
thought you were doing.
No, I'm trying to get your attention.
Second.
That's all right. All right, this is to take items 14, 15 as a block vote. Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
14, salary resolution number 1, minimum maximum for data officer. Number 15, salary resolution number 4, all positions data officer in the Department of Buildings.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
16, settlements. Settlement resolution in the claim of Cynthia Russell versus City of Mount Vernon, Paulino and Perez Familia, $7,500.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
17.
I move to take items 17, 18, and 19 as a block vote.
Second.
Thank you. This is to take items 17 and 19 as a block vote. Comptroller Morton,
17, 18, and 19.
17, 18, 19. Sorry.
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
17, settlement for 700 Locust Avenue, Fleetwood Stores LLC, $23,981.14. 18, settlement for Fleet Ridge Owners, Inc., 600 through 642 Locust Street, $76,455.78. Number 19, settlement resolution for 180 Persol Drive, Vernon Woods Apartments, Inc., $129,830.03.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
So these tax review settlements, we've been talking about it for a while about the need for Mount Vernon to also do a
Reval.
revow,
I was going to say the same thing.
right? And of course, we know that there's a necessity for that. The challenge has been because there's also a significant cost to doing it. And so, we had talked about at some point around trying to finance it, which means that, again, we would be potentially looking at, in this particular state, about bans to do it, which, of course, given right now our credit rating, bond rating, those, bans come in at a higher, interest rate, and it's a shorter period of time. But we're gonna have to probably look at this very, very carefully. And begin to strategize and see, if there's any other funding to this, but also if not, we're gonna have to just probably make the critical decision on the cost benefit analysis. From a cost benefit analysis perspective, if it's worth it just to actually indebt ourselves to be able to kind of do it, because right now, we're bleeding out, right? Because we know that
While people are making historic profits off of properties that they sell.
All right, and so, we know, that this is gonna be a challenge. So, just wanted to kind of make sure we put it on the record, kind of have that discussion that, sooner than later, we're gonna have to have this discussion.
Well, I definitely fully support it because if you didn't say that, I was getting ready to say it, but I heard you, so let's just say it, but we definitely have to do a revaluation here in the city of Mount Vernon. We know that the sale prices for our homes are going at a significant higher level, but people continue to challenge their assessments, which brings the valuation of our city down, which causes us to have higher tax rates. So that is also part of the, the failing formula for managing the fiscal future of our city if we don't do it, right? Yeah, because, people complain about the tax rates, but the tax rates are very, very directly related to the valuation of our city. And if we continue year over the year to lose valuation while we gain valuation in other areas, but the net is much lower than what it should be, the tax rates, it'll be harder to bring them down until we do a valuation. And we know some people's valuations will go up and some people will go down, but at least it will put an end to the kind of predictable, bleeding and challenges and amount of time that we have to spend in certiorari hearings dealing with this issue. So I fully support it. So that's roll call.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard,
Aye.
and you want to go back to number 12?
Yes, going back to number 12. You,
Going back to number 12, the resolution setting the date for a public hearing regarding the proposed 2026 annual estimate for the city of Mount Vernon.
okay, so here we are. We're expecting a 6.9% increase as part of this draft budget estimate. At this time, it is a 6.09% increase, which we've been able to bring down considerably. Changes after this are going to be much more difficult, but we will still continue to work. I'm asking that we set a hearing for this for December 1st, because we want to move this process along. We will continue between now and the hearing and after the hearing to work on reductions, but we could not continue to hold the budget back or the draft annual estimate back. And so we needed to get it out there now. And so I don't know if y'all want to vote on it or I'm going to do a presentation. I've sent it out. So the primary drivers in the budget increase at 6.09% right now is really directly connected to, the work that we've done over the last few years and really trying to put unions into alignment and get their contracts up. So in this year's budget, we have $2 million included in the collective bargaining contingency line so that we could negotiate in good faith with our unions. It is not, the level of increase we would want to be able to give, but it is the level of increase that we could afford. This also reflects $3.2 billion rise in retirement costs. In 2025, the retirement costs were $15.2 million, and they jumped in 2026 to $18.4 million. And this really ties directly back to the union contracts that we did back in, I believe, December of 2023, or in 2023, where we went to settle contracts that went all the way back to 18, and then some reopenings that we had dealt with that went all the way back to 13, correct? I think for the Teamsters and maybe CSEA, it went all the way back to 2013.
Yeah, some reopenings.
Yeah, so those went all the way back then. So the cost of contracts are not just the percentage increase, but it is also the Social Security taxes and definitely the retirement taxes. And it took the state a year or so to kind of catch up on all of the recalculations of those salary changes and adjustments that were made for those 6-year periods. And so we see in this 1 year's budget alone, the 3.2% million rise, a $3.2 million rise in retirement costs. Our debt service has also doubled to over $3 million due to bond anticipation notes that we use to cover those 6 years of retroactive payments to the PBA, to Teamsters and to CSEA. I think you had just kind of taken out of cash flow the retro payments that we had to fire and the reopening costs that we had to CSEA and Teamsters. And then we also added in that debt service, our payments for capital projects, like the replacement of do we use the band for the police roof? We used some of the band. We had a band for the police roof and, a few other capital projects. And then also, while we were able to use ARPA money a few years back to start buying a few pieces of DPW equipment, we still had major parts of our fleet that were 20 years old and older and in non-working condition. I think we were spending more money trying to keep them on the road than we were doing what we needed to do. And so we had to take out bans for those. And so that has 5 million to just over $3 million. In total, when you look at the $3.2 million rise in retirement and some of the money that is also attributed to the bans that we used for paying the retroactive payments over time, because we couldn't pay them all at once, that's about a $4 million hit to this year's budget. $4 million hit. There's, no way that that could be avoided when you're catching up with contracts. So our assessed valuation did go up just a little more than $500,000, and that was still with some of the certiaries that were charged against it. Of course, if we weren't getting those certiaries, it would be a much better increase. We are continuing to work with our growing our tax base through growing our residential, retail, and industrial tax base. As the comptroller just spoke a few moments before, and I supported it as well as our council president dittoed it, that we definitely need to look at going into doing a reval of the city so that we could stabilize our assessed valuation for the city. And then additionally, we have to continue to grow our retail and our industrial tax base. So to that end, to support ongoing growth, we've added the position of Director of Development / IDA Director in 2026. And this cost will be incurred by the IDA. The salary costs will come from a MOU / grant from or transfer funds from the Industrial Development Association. Some people might say, well, isn't that a position you've already had? We have not had an IDA director since I've been in this position here in the mayor's office. We did have a director of business compliance. And that was for the most part, and then started to transition into business development, but we have not had a director of economic development or the IDA. So I just wanted to be clear on that. So again, I just have a chart here to talk about the major appropriation increases. And, if you look in the first category, salaries, we've reduced salaries in the city of Mount Vernon in this budget by about $885,000. And that comes through the elimination or reduction in workforce of about 40 positions. But I'm going to come back to that. You can see the 3 million, almost 3.2, 3,159,596 increase that we are seeing in our retirement payments. And then the other one, you could see 1.55322 in increases in debt service. And, right there, that is a major driver. When you look at retirement costs went up 17%. That's a major, major hit. And, we've had to find a way to absorb that clearly. That $3.2 million hit is not in here showing just as a direct expense, else our tax increase would be much higher. Our healthcare premiums are remaining flat this year. And that stability comes only after the removal of about 40 budgeted positions that we've carried in the past. We have not yet seen what the implications of the federal implications of the Affordable Care Act, kind of being rolled back as of December 31st is going to have on our 2026, 2027 healthcare premiums, as those numbers have not been impacted. The numbers we've given by the state have not been impacted by that yet. And I don't know if they're locked in. Controller, you would be able to speak to that more. But I'll talk about really the workforce efficiencies and the personnel reductions. We've carried, in each year we've reduced positions because we've had to become leaner and leaner and leaner as we're dealing with unfunded mandates, as we're dealing with rising retirement costs, as we're dealing with rising medical expenses. Those are some of the challenges that we faced. And so, as I've stated already, we've removed about 40 positions outside of this budget. Some of them were vacant positions. And the reason they were vacant is because as they became vacant throughout the year or they became vacant in 2024, as 2025 came in, some of them we just said we had to hold the line and we had to do more with less. And as some others left, we continue to hold those positions vacant and look at reorganizing and restructuring roles and consolidating roles. But we did also eliminate positions that were filled. So it was just not vacant positions. We've had to do an actual elimination and reduction in force or layoffs for some positions that people are currently in. And we've been very clear with everyone that remains, you just have to do more and more work. So it's really a challenge. It is not easy, but and some people might say, well, how are you laying off people and still increasing a tax rate? Amazon laid off 40,000 people and they're trillionaires, right? The county, I think, has eliminated over 100 and I don't know if it's 80 positions, but over 100 positions. And this is happening for corporate businesses and it's happened for municipalities everywhere. In the police department, we did eliminate some of the vacant positions. We did not eliminate all of the vacant positions because we always want to make sure that we maintain a safe number. But as I heard, I believe from one of the Yonkers police union leads, it says that the recruitment pool for police used to be a pool and now it's a puddle. That was on the news the other day. People are just not signing up over the last 5 to 7 years for policing, right? And so it's becoming much harder to recruit and replace. It's not just about the salaries, but it is also about people who are not necessarily looking to go into that pool. When Yonkers and Westchester County and all the other cities continue to see people not taking the tests and that impacting them, trust me, in a community like Mount Vernon, it impacts us even more. And so we did not want to continue to budget for positions that we knew we would not fill, but we did not eliminate all of those positions because we do know that we have the ability to fill some of those, especially as others are retiring. So like I said, the positions that we've eliminated in the budget, especially those that were filled, it is not that they are not necessary, but we have to make cuts. And that was a hard decision that we had to make after a lot of consideration. And again, we're going to do some strategic consolidation of duties and some cross-departmental coordination to make it work. And so when we look at our budget allocation, next slide. Our operations, have not changed significantly. The percentages have not changed significantly. Mount Vernon government period is very much a service, based entity. So your biggest expenses are going to come in salaries and in personnel benefits. So our salaries are 51% of the budget. Our personnel benefits are 37%. That might be a little bit of an adjustment that we've seen from last year because we've cut some positions and we had such a big jump in our retirement. And so you see a little change there. And in operational expenses, most companies' operational expenses are somewhere, between about 15 to 20%. And we're operating at a very low operational margin. And those operational expenses are everything from phones to supplies to equipment to utility costs and things of that nature. It's not a big wide margin. But again, we are trying to operate as efficiently as we can, as people in their homes are being forced to do the same thing because of rising costs. Again, major appropriations increased by 4.7 million from 2025 to 2026, driven primarily by retirement costs and debt service. Department lines have been realigned to more accurately reflect the actual spending. And the overall philosophy for 2026 is to keep departmental appropriations flat. And again, throughout the year, departments were asked to hold their lines on operational spending and staffing. And that's about 12% of the budget. So when we look at the salaries, people might say, well, why aren't you cutting more and more salaries and more people? Because in order to be able to deliver the three primary services that we deliver to the city, which is police, fire, and DPW, that's about 75%. It's 75% of the budget. And in order to make gains and cut the number of staff, we're not cutting because we have 4 collective bargaining units. You're not cutting high-paying staff, in order to save 100,000 or 120,000. It's not like you cut a senior person. It's that you cut 2 of the last in, right? And so that would just cause us to incur more and more overtime on the other end, right? Which is kind of hard to predict when you start going deep into staff cuts. Then you are impacting the services that we are able to deliver. The rest of the city is about 25%. There's a graph here that shows let me put my glasses on so I could start seeing these very, very small percentages. Management services, which takes care of all of the digital functions of our city, is 2%, controller's office 3%, city clerk 1%, mayor's office 1%, recreation 5%, the building department 3%, and all the other departments combined 10%. So it is not easy to make much deeper cuts and be able to provide basic services. The total benefits breakdown, again, next slide is health and dental insurance, 43%. State retirement, 28%. Miscellaneous and contingency, again, that's, 13%. That's the operating. Debt service, 5%. Social Security, 9%. This is a very lean budget, and it is hard to cut deeper, like I said, and still meet basic obligations to our residents and to our staff. So some of the revenue additions and reductions that are driving this budget. Not only did we have what I said, about $4.5 million of major appropriation increases, we had some major revenue decreases to the tune of about $2.8 million in major revenue reductions. No, more than that. Almost $3 million in revenue reductions that we had to overcome. So sales of real property, insofar as things that we might have in our foreclosed properties that the city has in its hand. We removed those because this is a one-time revenue projection and it's uncertain as to if, you know, when and if that revenue comes in. And so if we budget that and it does not come in, it impacts cash flow and for us to be able to pay our basic bills on time. We reduced the red light and speed cameras. Red light cameras, as you heard, we approved that contract today. And so those cameras should be installed. But our speed cameras, which went up to the state, I believe almost 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, it was approved by the Senate and the Assembly. But the governor didn't sign off on it until October 27th, right? And so it doesn't take effect until Thanksgiving. And then we have to go and do RFPs. So we cannot sit here and put in that revenue for something, that we don't know what it looks like. Before we had red light cameras, we could have some predictability around that revenue and that expense. Speed cameras, we do not have that information and that data yet. And so I can't just keep that number in there without any historical data to support it. Sales tax, there has been a decline in our sales taxes. I think this is probably the first time in over a decade or so that we've seen our sales taxes decline. But that is in line with what we've seen with sales taxes, not only in the county, but the state and across the country during a time of economic uncertainty that we're seeing with tariffs, with layoffs, with reductions in workforces, with a higher unemployment, regardless of whether or not the federal government releases numbers. We know the unemployment rate is going up. People are holding on to their dollars and spending really on essential things. And so sales tax, we do definitely predict will reduce next year. And so we are showing it right here in the budget. Real property taxes, there's a slowing housing market. It's not just a Mount Vernon issue. In Mount Vernon, our housing market is actually quite tight. We don't have a lot of houses, as many houses up for sale as we historically do. I've been speaking to the Hudson Gateway Realtors Association, NAREB, and all different housing experts, and we do have a very tight housing market in Mount Vernon. But right now, people are holding on to their homes because they can predict what that is, and they're not selling. So we had to identify the real property tax. And I guess, what is that, the transfer tax or something like that? The transfer tax that would come from sales of houses. We have to show that reduction. The reduction delinquent school tax fees, that's based on the controller's projections of declining trend and the uncertainty of collecting these fees, especially given the 8 to 16 month projected timeline for MREM properties. The building department, it just in this one line, we reduced it 150. The building department as a whole will see increased revenues, as you will see in the revenue area, but we decreased this line because we have to realign the way that the money is coming into the building department and show it in the proper lines. 130,000 in inspection fees. We put this in the budget last year based on the work that we were doing with the New York State Department of State, knowing that we have to do the inspections on, public assemblies and multiple dwelling units. We projected a certain amount of revenue based on the numbers of multiple dwelling units that we should be doing each year. The challenge is that the state has a rule, but we don't necessarily have local enforcement powers that keep up with the rule, right? And so we've asked people to register for inspection. We cannot force our ways into people's homes to do the inspections. And so while we stand ready to be in compliance with the state, the revenue is going to come slower because we're going to have to take more legal actions to force residents who have more than 3 units in their homes to sign up for and comply with the state inspection rates. And so we have to show a decrease in that. Cannabis tax, I mean, you know, that's a separate tax and it's not going to do anything different than sales tax, but be reduced a little bit. I'm sure people want to use it because it's a stressful time, but you know, they also have to take care of regular bills. And so we're showing a reduction there. Where we are showing an additions in revenue and we are pushing revenues, right? We have written already this year more parking tickets because the double parking, the parking on corners, the parking at fire hydrants, the parking at no parking signs, the parking across people's driveways. We're writing those tickets. We are writing those tickets. Some people will say, oh, this is just a reverse tax. You're just trying to fund the city on the back of parking tickets. You don't have to worry about that if you follow the law. Follow the law. You don't have to worry about tickets. But what we are doing and why I've put it in here aggressively is because we will have not just enforcement by the writing of tickets, but we will have located in the courthouse an on-site prosecutor who will settle these ticket amounts. And so some of the large reductions that the community has enjoyed having and why they don't take parking enforcement seriously, you will not enjoy. So please be already noticed that we will have a prosecutor in court to fight your reduction, fight your boots, fight those things. And we have a booting contract out. So we will see increased revenue from booting and from enforcement and prosecution of parking fines. You can't go to New Rochelle, White Plains, Yonkers, or any other town, village, or city around here and get away with parking the way people feel they have the right to do in the city of Mount Vernon. We put in an addition of 800,000 per capita state revenue sharing because there's some New York State aid that the governor and the Assembly and the Senate have put in last year and for this year. And so we are reflecting that. Sewer rates, we've had improved collection rates, and those transfers will come over from the Department of Water to the city. And so we're going to show that. Building alterations and permits have been adjusted to actuals. We have seen very good increases in our building and alteration permits. I believe that the launch of OpenGov has helped. I think the greater enforcement of people doing illegal work has helped, but I also think some of the adjustments that have been made and have not been fully realized yet, but with people applying for their permits and getting them quicker, we're showing that in here. And then we have some large scale projects that are on tap for development, and we're showing that in here. We will be increasing our fees for large projects. We're not talking about you putting a basic roof on your home. We're talking about large scale apartment buildings that are coming online in our city as part of development. And so we will be adjusting fees on the large scale projects. So if you have a project already in the pipeline and you're kind of holding on to your money, knock it out this year and pay those fees because the state's, what is that? The State Department of State's building regulations and codes also change in 2026. So one of the conversations that we've been having, and I definitely started having that conversation during the 2024 and continued to have the conversation and push for this during 2025. And thank you, Comptroller, for definitely being on board with this. And the council is that electeds and appointeds have to contribute to our medical insurance. I had to contribute to my medical insurance when I worked at a not-for-profit, right? And so right now, our police and our fire contribute to their medical benefits as we're in collective bargaining with CSCA and Teamsters. This is also an issue that has to be addressed because, as we've said over and over again, one of the biggest increases in our expenses continues to be rising medical costs. And the city cannot just bear that by themselves. It is just not sustainable. We have $245,000 in New York State EFC sewer grant. And that supports the assistant engineer and stormwater coordinator positions as we continue, to expand our compliance around, stormwater. Then there is an additional $200,000 in pilots payments. This is not an increase in the number of pilots. This is just an escalation of fees that are already baked into the existing pilot agreements. Would you say that's accurate? Controller, okay, he says that's accurate. So, in the pilots, there are escalators in the different pilots, and so this is what you're seeing, that increase. It's not new pilots. As I stated earlier, we'll be hiring an IDA and Economic Development Director. That expenses showed in the budget, and so we have to show the revenue that will come from the IDA to cover that position. There's been rate increases from Con Ed, and, clearly the utilities receipts tax comes to Mount Vernon, and so we're showing that in the budget. We've expanded some of the event activity at Memorial Field, and we've been able to realize more revenue as we continue to grow our offerings and our events, and so that 100,000 is in there. There's a rental, $100,000 additional rental of real property. I believe that the Comptroller's Office, that is the, I wouldn't want to say landlord, I guess the superintendent of properties here in Mount Vernon, they are updating
The real property?
the rental of real
Yeah, those are,
adju-
adjustments to contracts
contract
of
agreement.
existing lease agreements for properties in which we actually own principally, some of the areas own the lots into down on Franklin.
Okay, and then we are showing $100,000 of additional revenue in the refuse and garbage charges, in looking at increasing the refuse fees by about 12.5%. We have held those steady for 4 years. And in that same 4-year period, our surrounding communities have increased their rates by about 25%. And so we're only proposing to increase our rates by half of what we've seen our surrounding communities increase their fees. And, this is really, really important. It's really important that people understand this is a fee versus a tax. A fee impacts more people. If we don't have this fee increase, we'll see at least another probably 1.25% increase in the tax rate. And so fees can be managed and can be kept at a lower rate than tax increases because they impact more people, right? It's not just a small pool of people that's paying the fee, it's a larger pool. And so $25 is about $2 and what, 8 cents, 8.5 cents a month. The refuse fee will increase. The city of Mount Vernon probably definitely collects more garbage per capita than any city. We're almost on par with Yonkers, and Yonkers has 3 times the number of residents that we have. We pick up garbage twice a week, right? We pick up recycling consistently. We're picking up rubbish and large bulk items, where in other communities, you have to take them to the dump and you have to pay for those things to be dumped and taken away. And so Mount Vernon has enjoyed for a long time benefits of DPW and sanitation that other communities don't enjoy. Even in this budget, one of the considerations is, do we go down to picking up garbage once a week instead of picking it up twice a week? And do we cut back more on DPW? With the density of Mount Vernon, with the amount of garbage that we collect, that would be garbage that would be sitting in buildings, on side of buildings, behind houses, and we would just have an increased rat problem. So going down to picking up garbage one time a week to save costs is not even feasible. It's not feasible operationally. It's not feasible to the public health and safety of the community. And so that's not an option. But I need people to understand, you check other communities around us and see how often they're picking up garbage and see what they're being charged in their refuse fees, and also understand that they are not, people aren't picking up mattresses and TVs and refrigerators that most of the communities that surround us charge for those items. And we are looking at a red tag program that is before the council. It's not going to bring in a lot of money, but we have to start balancing it. And we have to, when you see something, say something. I'm tired of seeing people bring their family members' garbage to their house so we could pick it up. Right? There's a lot of little games going on, but every bit of garbage that we collect and all of the bulk items that we collect, the city has to pay to discard them. Right? And we have to find a way to balance out that expense and that cost. And the last piece, right now is, for the most part, we've tried to stay within, our tax rate. Right? And I'm going to say this because I say this every year. Mount Vernon is operating, as you've heard us say over and over and over again, and I will say it again, and I'm sure you'll hear the comptroller talk about it in his presentation. We're operating without reserves. We are operating on a cash basis as a city, right? We're operating on a cash basis, and because we do not have reserves, our tax increases over the past 6 years have been higher than they have been in the past, right? Our budgets for years, for decades, were balanced on having reserves. We came into no reserves. We came into lots of fiscal questions and challenges. And then we also were hit with COVID earlier. And people say, well, you keep saying that and you're using that as an excuse. If you and your house don't have credit cards, and if you don't have savings, and you have emergency costs or any other challenges, you're trying to find a way to balance. We don't have reserves to balance our budget. And so the tax increases sometimes are much higher, well, or have been much higher than I would want them to be, but they are realistic. We are pushing our revenues, and I know the comptroller is not always comfortable with some of the revenue projections. But the budget committee, my office, my chief, working with your budget director and your department, in the comptroller's office, are going to keep our foot right on the, and I don't want to say the proverbial neck, but right on the pedal, to make sure that these revenues that are coming in, that we've had to push and be aggressive, else we would be looking at 13-14% tax increase. And that is absolutely not sustainable for our residents. It's not sustainable for our city. We are trying to share the burden and share the load. And so this is where we are. I'm gonna leave it there. But trust me, we know that expenses are sure, but if we're not meeting our revenues, then we will have to make deeper cuts as the year comes in and progresses next year. And that's not something that I'm afraid to do. And my commissioners understand, and they know, and they have this understanding that the expectation will be on revenue generation, as well as at the same time holding firm on expenses, right? Really holding on expenses. We've continuously done that throughout this year. So they know the drill. And that's where we are right now. As I've said in the beginning, this is the proposed rate increase of 6.09 which you could almost call 6.1, but 6.09 that we're looking at right now, my desire is to see this decrease between now and when we move it to the next level to the council, for them to move forward with their hearing. And I will continue to work with our council and our controller and our commissioners to find revenue opportunities as well as additional saving opportunities to make a difference. So, thank you. With that being said, can we have a motion for the Board of Estimate hearing on December 1? Or do you want to discuss what I presented?
Madam President, do you have anything?
No,
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of discussion. I mean, you said my concern is going to center around, the revenues, and where we are. So, I mean, we've discussed it. So, I mean, it's for transparency, my office has been working, with the mayor's office for the last, few weeks, to provide the necessary information as it pertains to, our mandatory, cost, as well as information regarding the analysis of both revenues and expenditures, to try to come to a final presentation for the budget. We continue to be very concerned about what's going to happen with the items that are unsure, which are which you've highlighted kind of in the presentation. We'll continue to do also in our presentations going forward, specifically related to revenues and those large revenue numbers. The sales tax revenue is continuing to decline. We don't, and that's not just in Mount Vernon, right? If we look at it, you see that there's areas too, but we have to be very concerned about that because the portion for which our revenues come in, related to things like the sales tax and a revenue like the state aid and like those larger portions of revenue that are non-departmental, is higher. Of course, our tax revenue, which we've been pretty good at collecting around about 96% rate, typically. But again, some of that is also slow towards the end. And so, as I said in my letter related to the tax anticipation note, it's a matter of cash flow and trying to manage it. So if the revenues are not being met in a timely fashion and consistently throughout the year, and we're waiting for it actually to come in latter parts of the year, it creates a cash flow deficit for us and not able to kind of meet those obligations. So, we'll speak to those and what is going to be required of the administration in order to meet some of these very aggressive, what I would deem as more aggressive kind of revenues, even with the change in the operation, right? Because it just becomes very uncertain. All right, well, expenses are very certain.
Revenues are
Revenues are
not.
not, and without having a reserve, without having something to pull from, it means that there has to be more deliberate management on a daily basis, inclusive of, and particularly in the areas of our employee workforce management, where overtime, cannot have overruns. So, well, we'll be talking with him more. Hopefully, we can find and identify some places to bring this down. But it is pretty lean from the standpoint of expenditures. And revenues. It's just a matter of if there are any new revenues out there. We don't know what, red light camera, will do. The contract is just signed. We don't, only know when the actual.
Well, the contract's not even signed.
Not signed. It
the
just got
bill.
approved. It will get signed, and we don't know then how long it'll take for the actual implementation to go into effect with the, with those. But then also the addition of speed cameras coming in, we don't know what that effect's gonna be. But the good thing in that is that it may potentially create some sort of cash flow surplus, right? Because if it's not in the budget, which is what I would like for us to do, is to be very, very conservative on revenues and be very liberal on what the expenditures are, because then it will help us to be able to better balance it. And so, that's it.
And I guess for the sales tax, I'll just say to the residents who might be looking, one of the things that you could always do to help us is go shop at a store, but then order online. Go try it on and then shop online, because wherever it's delivered to is who gets the tax benefit. But if you buy it in the store, wherever you buy it, they get the tax benefit. So I know people in Mount Vernon love to shop. But go check it out and then buy it online. Let's keep our dollars in our community. And we will continue to try and work to expand business offerings that meet your desired tastes and what you're looking to do. So thank you.
Need a motion.
We need a motion for the December 1st public hearing. And the time is what, 6:30? 7 PM? Okay, so December 1st, 7 PM.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, hearing none, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Paxton Howard.
Aye.
That concludes the agenda.
Is there any new business? We have a motion to adjourn. That's your cue, President.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Paxton Howard.
Aye. You know, President, I always want to make sure I give you that, because you don't have many more of these to do that, The only thing, you'll be adjourning court for the day, but yeah. Congratulations to our judge-elect and our comptroller, being elected to his second term, and happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I know the city will be giving away turkeys. Please, if you have not done so and you still need a turkey, contact our recreation department at 914-665-2420. If people are in churches or whoever's looking to give them away, please share that information with it so we can get it to people who are in need. Also, I know the city, in partnership with Recreation Department and Senator Bailey and Assemblyman Pretlow, and other organizations, are going to be doing coat drives. So if you're interested in donating towards a coat drive or a toy drive, again, please reach out to our Recreation Department at 914-665-2420, and we will share that information via our social media means, for not just our endeavors, but for other community endeavors as well. We want to make sure it feels already like it's going to be a little colder winter than it was last year. It's predicted to be a little more snowy. So if we can come together as a community to help some who are not as fortunate, then let's do it. If we all do a little bit, no one has to do it all. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless.